introduction. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Kezban, and today we will be focusing on fostering 21st century skills in ELT classrooms using matrices. To get started with, so why do we talk about, I would like to share my outline. So we will have a look at 21st century skills in education and ELT, and examples of matrix-based teaching strategies customized for ELT classrooms, why and hows of using matrices. And I would like to share voices from students from my practice with classes and considerations for effectively implementing these matrices. And why are we talking about 21st century skills today? If we have a very short introduction to the topic, it starts with information age demanding diverse skill set. And this is led by shifting job requirements, meaning reduction in routine manual tasks and increase in advanced knowledge with emphasis on applied skills. So this brought up a unified vision for learning, as some may call it, which are essential for success in education and the global workforce. The visual here represents a comprehensive approach, including a content knowledge, specific skills, expertise, and literacies. So this is called the 21st century knowledge and skills rainbow, including life and career skills, learning and innovation skills, information, media and technology skills, core subjects with certain themes specific to 21st century. And it is believed preparation for a world where change is constant, developing such skills on top of core subjects is essential, where there is an emphasis on life learning and adaptability. How about ELT classroom? Where does English language instruction stand in terms of developing such skills? So you would remember in the middle, in the core of this visual, we had core subjects and skills. When we have a closer look at these subjects, these include, as the list given in the original document, it starts with English, reading and language arts, work languages. So this shows us that our classrooms as ELT classrooms play an important role in the development of such skills and may serve this purpose. And the literature suggests it is important in ELT classrooms to include such skills to prepare students for the future, enhancing learning and promoting learning autonomy through incorporating skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, which also helps with language development and proficiency, and making learning more engaging and relevant via including real-world tasks and projects. So when we look at this rainbow, obviously it includes many different colors, different types of skills, and different core subjects and themes. Of course, it is not possible to talk about how to develop these all in one sitting. That's why today we will be focusing on learning and innovation skills, which are also commonly known as 4 C's: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. I would like to have a closer look at what does it mean for students to critically think, to be creative, to communicate effectively. So they come with sub-skills. So to be able to think critically and solve problems effectively, students should be able to reason effectively, use systems thinking, make judgments, decisions, and solve problems. In terms of communication and collaboration skills, students should be able to communicate clearly and collaborate with others, practicing certain sub-skills such as using communication to inform, motivate, persuade, and working respectfully with diverse teams. Being flexible, willing to compromise, articulating ideas through different channels such as oral, written, and nonverbal communication channels, sharing responsibility, valuing teamwork. And in terms of creativity and innovation skills, students should be able to think creatively, work creatively with others, and it doesn't end there. They should implement innovations. In terms of practicing such skills, they should be able to refine and evaluate ideas, be open to diverse perspectives, show originality, and view failure as an opportunity. So when we look at these 4 C's, skills and sub-skills they entail, here we need to stop for a minute and ask ourselves as teachers, is it easy to teach these skills? These skills are not so easy to teach. Let's have a closer look. Okay. Because of this, the demand placed on us as teachers is finding ways to incorporate these skills into our lessons. And the question is, how? I would like to suggest using matrices to foster such skills in our classrooms. But why? So 4 C's, developing 4 C's in our classes means involving students more cognitively. And they are not so easy to teach, practice, and evaluate. Here, matrices may provide framework for clarity, observable outcomes, real-world applications, student empowerment, and flexibility and adaptability. So when used as a structured tool, they may serve as a framework by providing a clear roadmap for skill development. And they may help us define clear, observable outcomes. It helps making abstract skills more concrete because when we look at the list, it is mostly about abstract thinking and verbalizing such thinking. It may facilitate tracking progress and identifying areas to be improved. Matrices may help us include examples from different fields and job roles in classroom. And it may help with getting students to assess themselves and take ownership of their learning. And they are adaptable to levels, both grade and proficiency-wise, and individual needs in our classes. Now, I would like to continue with presenting very practical examples of how I used such matrices in the classrooms. So for critical thinking, I will be presenting Eisenhower Matrix. For creativity, skills development, I will be presenting SCAMPER Matrix. In terms of developing collaboration, I will be talking about RACI Matrix. And in terms of developing communication skills, I will be talking about Lasswell Communication Matrix. Before going into details of such matrices, I would like to set the stage first. This reading is used as the foundation for all the upcoming matrix-based tasks. Students read this and took notes about what could be done to protect environment at 3 levels, at organizational level, governmental level, and individual level. So this was the input students received before practicing in such, using such matrices. So to start with, the first one is called Eisenhower Matrix. It is also known as Urgent Important Matrix. The purpose is time management. People use this when they have to make decisions to prioritize tasks based on 2 criteria, urgency and importance. As you see, the matrix consists of 4 quadrants. Number 1, urgent and important. This is for tasks to be done immediately. Quadrant 2, for important, but not that urgent. So these are tasks to be scheduled. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important tasks to be delegated. And quadrant 4, not urgent, not important, so tasks to be eliminated. And after the reading task, how I use this task with my students, I got them to do environmental decision making. So they identified tasks at 3 levels: organizational, governmental, and individual. And they used the Eisenhower matrix to categorize actions given in the reading task into 4 quadrants. After this categorization, they started developing their action plans. For example, for the actions they placed on quadrant 1, they suggested solutions. For actions in quadrant 2, they started focusing on preventive activities. And for quadrant 3 and 4, they decided whether to delegate or to disregard actions. Having developed their action plans, they prepared a brief presentation, shared their scenarios and action plans. And as a class in plenary, they discussed and wrote the most critical action plan in quadrant 1 to implement immediately to solve an important environmental issue. So through these tasks, the aim was to get the students to use reasoning, use systems thinking to talk about how different types of actions should be prioritized in complex systems. They were to use evidence, arguments, alternative views, and they had to critically reflect on the input of the reading. The second matrix type I would like to talk about now is called SCAMPER technique. The technique, this matrix is a brainstorming tool used for creative problem solving and idea generation. It is not a recent one. It dates back to 1991, and as it is arranged as a mnemonic to help children develop perceptive, imaginative, and creative abilities. And each letter stands for a different action. So as for substitute, so what can be substituted in solving a problem or developing an existing practice? What can be combined, for example, in the process? What can be adapted, changed, used, part? What can be modified? What could be used in other ways? What can be eliminated to make the process more efficient, for example? Or what can be reversed or re-engineered for better results? How I used this matrix with my students was that I asked them to, after reading the reading task, I asked them to discuss and identify a specific environmental problem in the neighborhood of our campus. Our campus is located in an urban area, so there are some environmental issues to be addressed. And after identifying the problem, they discussed the causes and current efforts to address that problem, noting key points from the reading. And later, they started brainstorming with SCAMPER matrix. And they started looking for what could be substituted. And I provided them with questions to consider in the process. And I will explain later why they had questions to consider in this matrix. For example, I asked them to think about what modifications based on the reading text could be used to improve a current environmental solution, or how current resources in the campus could be used differently to tackle that environmental issue. Later, I asked them to choose the most promising idea to develop further a specific action. And the final task was them to draft project steps to follow and conclude their environmental innovation task. So with this task, Students had to communicate with each other, and they had to listen to each other, obviously, and they had to use communication channels to motivate and persuade each other to follow a certain path. And the third type of matrix I would like to now focus on is called RACI Matrix. So this matrix is used in project management to clarify roles and responsibilities. So when we have a project at hand, we have tasks, obviously, and we have people. So this matrix helps with identifying who is going to be doing what. We have R as responsible people. These are the individuals, teams who do the work. They are tasked with executing the task. And we have A, accountable. They are the answerable people for the work's completion, and they are the final decision makers. C stands for consultant. These are generally subject matter experts who provide input, guidance, and advice on the completion and success of project and steps to be taken. And I stands for informed, referring to people to be kept in the loop about progress and decisions. These people may not be directly involved in the task, but they are to be updated on outcomes and developments. How I incorporated this matrix as a follow-up to the SCAMPER Campus Neighborhood Environmental Innovation Project. A week later, I asked my students to fill out the RACI matrix, discussing which bodies could be responsible in their campus neighborhood innovation project. So they agreed that students could take part, academicians, rectorate, environmental, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, municipality, and others. So you would remember, as the last step of the SCAMPER matrix, they decided on the project steps and listed them down. This time, after listing all the project steps, they were to decide who is going to be doing what is the role, the vision in this environmental innovation project they were to develop and execute, hypothetically, in the first place. So a field task would be like this, a completed task would look like this. So students would be deciding, for example, executing the project. They thought they would be responsible for it, like cleaning a littered area, and the rectorate should be informed about that. Last model I will be talking about is called Lasswell Model, and it is a communication matrix developed by a communication theorist. This is used as a framework to analyze communication acts. It is believed to help with identifying key components involved in communication. And the structure poses 5 questions. Who? Who is the sender or source of the communication? Says what? What is the content? What is the message being delivered? And in which channel, which medium is used for communication? To whom? What is the target audience? And what is the impact or outcome? So it is the with what effect question. This model is commonly used in media analysis studies as well. How I integrated this model, this matrix, into environmental units that we did with my students was I asked them to develop an advocacy, environmental advocacy campaign by following these steps. After completing reading, note-taking tasks, and getting familiar with environmental actions to be taken at organizational, individual, and governmental levels, they this time started talking about how to apply this model to develop their own campaign, an advocacy task. And their task was to develop their outline under 6 headings as given. So I asked them to introduce the issue briefly, identify the sender, organizer as communicator. They were to develop a clear, concise message, choose their platforms as the medium of communication of their advocacy task, and identify receiver by defining their target audience and explaining the expected outcome of their campaign. And once they finalize this, they put this in a basic HTML format. And I would like to share a sample project, a sample outline web page they completed after this one. They called themselves Özpeace, inspired by Greenpeace, and this was their introduction, focusing on plastic waste. And they identified themselves as Özpeace, the communicator of the campaign, focusing on sustainability. And their message was saying no to single-use plastic. And they invited people to join the fight for a cleaner planet. And as medium of their message, they decided to use online videos to be shared on media platforms. And they decided on the content of the videos to be included, like tips on reducing plastic use in daily life and some success stories from other communities. As the receiver, as their target audience, they wanted to focus on households because we have our campus located in an urban area. So they decided to increase awareness in that respect. And their aim, what effect part was following the listed effects here, raising awareness, inspiring people to make sustainable choices, and increasing the rate of recycling and using eco-friendly alternatives. So if you would remember the model, it asks about the channel of communication. And they drafted certain social media posts about their campaign. And they provided community event plan about how to disseminate their message, how to disseminate their plans, how to communicate their campaign to a bigger audience. They decided to organize a local cleanup day, and they decided to promote it through social media, community boards, and they thought providing refreshments would be helpful. So this task meant to help them communicate in groups, but also go beyond communicating in groups and deciding how to communicate a project to a bigger audience using different medium channels. Having completed all these tasks with my students at hand in 2 different classes, I wanted to understand their experience in the process. So I asked them to comment about the use of such matrices in the classroom and give feedback about what they liked and what could be better. And here are their comments. They said having a matrix was like a map, and they felt it felt good to have a plan with steps to follow. But they said the campus matrix, the SCAMPER one, I believe it refers to that one with multiple steps. It had too many steps, and they said it was confusing to what to do first to get familiar with the matrix itself. And they said that these activities helped them talk more, and they had to tell others their ideas, hopefully. This is one of my favorite. They said we disagreed a lot in our groups with the matrix. So they shared this as a point to be improved in terms of using the matrices. But I like this one because the whole purpose is to get them to disagree at certain points so that they could have this real authentic chance to communicate, to make compromises, to listen to each other and involve in that real communication, to listen and to think critically about the proposals by different people. And they said it was hard to agree on things and listen all the time. Yes, they were supposed to listen all the time to be able to complete the tasks. As a positive note, they said they liked doing real things. It wasn't just reading. We did real stuff, they said. And in the classroom, they were talking about, they say, we felt like college students. So we felt a difference. It was really nice to think about our campus and what to do in terms of environmental issues, they said. Having said this, they said they didn't know enough about environment and environmental protection. They said, we don't know enough techniques. How are we going to propose solutions? So at certain point, because of lack of expertise, let me say, or content knowledge, they said the matrix made it even more difficult to think about a possible solution because they lacked background information. But they said the responsibility matrix, RACI, it refers to, helped us help each other. We could explain things to our friends. It was good that they had this opportunity to support each other in the process. And this was one of the things they suggested as an improvement in the use of these tasks. They said it took a long time. Yes, obviously, because of these steps and the procedure itself, it took a long time. So the final comment I would like to share with you is this one. They said Eisenhower, it made them think hard, produce good ideas, and they felt like it was solving problems and puzzles. So it was good that they had this opportunity of thinking about problems and how to solve them. So putting my experience, reflecting on my experience as a teacher in using these matrices and considering student feedback I gathered from my students, I would like to continue with what to consider when using such matrices in ELT classrooms. So I think the important thing here is preparing students with relevant content and background knowledge to be able to help them comprehend the task and come up with applied ideas. Although I provided them with a reading in the first place, where they got familiar with individual actions, governmental actions, and organizational actions in terms of environmental protection, still, in the feedback, they said we didn't have enough knowledge to go beyond, to think about alternatives. So providing content and background knowledge would be helpful in getting them to complete and the tasks and think more critically about resources at hand, for example. The second one goes hand in hand with the first one, scaffolding matrix use by introducing them step by step and offering guided practice. The first time I introduced the Eisenhower urgency matrix, for example, I picked up a task from the reading and an individual action, and I represented it to students saying, okay, this is an action to be taken. Is it an urgent? Why is it urgent? If it's so, could it be delegated? Could it be done by other people? So this thinking aloud process helped them in understanding what to do. And of course, adjusting the complexity, because it is another level. It is a cognitive challenge on top of everything we do in the classrooms. So they have this language proficiency level at hand. they have input and they have a task with certain cognitive load. So it is always good to monitor how they are dealing with the tasks. And this received very positive feedback from my students, like using authentic materials, real-world scenarios. They were very happy to think about what to do with the campus area and think about it, for example. And this is the most challenging one for me. And some of our students are so used to getting the answer right, like they want to hear A's, B's, C's, tell me the right answer. Encouraging exploration of different perspectives, different ideas, and different solutions, and highlighting that there may not be one single correct answer to all the problems or all the questions is very helpful in using such matrices, because if you reflect on the tasks I presented you with, they were all about proposing solutions, thinking about what is going on, reflecting, deciding on who is going to do what. So there could be lots of variation in student responses and answers. And they said that they couldn't agree at certain points about what to do, which solution to continue with. And if you would remember the skills under 4 C's, to be able to communicate and collaborate effectively, they were to work respectfully with others and to be able to make compromises. So I believe this would be a real gain if we were able to offer this opportunity. And sometimes certain students may resist in terms of using such different tasks in the classes because they are not in the regular or common assessment types. So maybe it is good to stress the transferability of skills they develop by using such matrices, like being able to critically analyze a reading text, or being able to critically listen to an audio input and identify the hidden messages, etc. And based on feedback and my own experience, guiding time management is important to ensure completion without rushing or lingering too long. And of course, the final note I would like to share with you is facilitating reflection, both ourselves as teachers and getting feedback from students on the use of matrices to monitor challenge levels. In the SCAMPER task, I told you I would come back to that later. I provided my students with questions to consider in the column in the middle. And the reason why I did that was, in the first time I used that SCAMPER, students couldn't think of ideas much. They said they were too broad, they were too general for them. What is to adapt? So it is a broad question. So to help them in the process to narrow the focus a bit, I decided to include questions to consider and adapt the SCAMPER matrix to help my students in the process. So that would be very useful to monitor their process and let them share their experience with you so that we can take necessary actions as teachers to address their needs. This would be my references if you're interested in further investigating the issue of 21st century skills and developing them in the classes.